us today is the wonderful, brilliant Aida Rodriguez. I'm so excited to do the show with you and only you today, Aida. Thank you for joining us today.
The same. I feel the same way. Thank you.
We have so much to get to, so much news, including, yes, an update on Herman Cain, even though I disagree with him politically. Tragic update to that story. We'll share the details of that. We'll also talk about Bill Clinton's statements during John Lewis's funeral today. And as much as I disagree with what Bill Clinton said, this is a good opportunity for learning and to learn about some of the civil rights leaders that our social studies books and history books don't teach children about in history classes. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. As always, we have some announcements to mention before we get to these stories. So let me just give you some programming notes because we do have some exciting content coming up. For instance, I mentioned that we will be screening a movie on Monday night, August 3rd at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, and it centers around Parkland and the student activists who fought for gun control following that mass shooting. Parkland Rising will air on TYT Monday, August 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific. You can check it out at TYT. Whereas you can check that out on August 3rd, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. Wanted to make sure to give you guys the right time for that. And then one other programming note for tonight that I'm super excited about. Cenk Uygur is still out, but we're still gonna have an episode of Between Me and Uygur on our Twitch channel. Brett Ehrlich will be interviewing me. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. So just go to twitch.tv/TYT, twitch.tv/TYT at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific tonight. We have rescheduled TYT's game night for August 6th. So you can check that out at 9 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. Pacific. I know that was a lot, but I'm really excited about all this great new content that we're putting out. All right, well, without further ado, let's move on to some of the stories today, including dictator Trump, or at least wannabe dictator Trump. Donald Trump has suggested delaying the November 3rd presidential election due to unsubstantiated claims, and I really do want to emphasize unsubstantiated claims regarding mail-in voting. Now, understand that Donald Trump is falling behind significantly when it comes to polling. If the election were to take place today, it's very, very unlikely that he would be reelected. And this is both a distraction from his failed response to civil unrest and to the pandemic, but it's also a way to maybe plant a seed and see if possibly he could get away with delaying the election. Now, in order for him to delay it, you would need Congress to agree. He cannot unilaterally delay the election. But my answer to that is Donald Trump has violated the civil liberties of Americans, the constitutional rights of protesters. He has sent federal troops to Portland and has suggested sending them to other parts of the country to fight crime, which of course is completely out of their jurisdiction. This is a man who does not care about the law. This is a man who has gotten away with breaking the law several times, even while he sits in the White House. And so these are, suggestions that should be taken seriously. And there was some foreshadowing. And we got a little bit of that foreshadowing during his interview with Chris Wallace. Take a look.
I don't lose too often. I don't like to lose.
But are you gracious?
You don't know until you see. It depends. I think mail-in voting is going to rig the election. I really do.
Are you suggesting that you might not accept the results of the election?
I have to see. Look, Hillary Clinton asked me the same thing.
No, I asked you the same thing in the debate.
And you know what? She's the one that never accepted it.
I agree.
She never accepted her loss, and she looks like a fool.
Can you give a direct answer? You will accept the election?
I have to see. Look, I have to see. No, I'm not going to just say yes. I'm not going to say no, and I didn't last time either.
So I thought that was an important moment from that interview with Chris Wallace because it gave us a little bit of a sense, at least, into what Donald Trump plans on doing if he doesn't get his numbers up in time. Now, remember, there's only 96 days left until the election. And so today in the morning, he tweeted, with universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote. Now, it's important to note that there are 5 states, Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Utah, and Washington, which currently hold elections almost entirely by mail. There is no evidence to reinforce what he's alleging here, that mail-in voting is going to lead to widespread fraud. But there is a great deal of evidence showing that Donald Trump is in trouble in his polling, in how he's responded to various issues that the country is going through right now, crises that the country is going through. So this is honestly something that I'm taking seriously, but I want to hear your thoughts, Aida.
Well, I'm right there with you. I think we've been taking stuff seriously a long time ago. I mean, the rule of law has been violated countless times since Donald Trump has been in office. I disagree with him. I think the greatest embarrassment that this country has experienced happened in 2016. I think that, I watched The Handmaid's Tale, and we laugh at stuff like that because it doesn't look real. And we're like, wow, look at this TV show. But if you pay attention to some of the things that are happening within our government, they're very similar to people who are trying to, put this authoritarian government into effect. Now, I will say this. It is no coincidence that all of a sudden he's talking about how things don't seem like they're going to be on the up and up, because he's on the decline. Because another one of our greatest embarrassments is the way the leader of the free world handled a national pandemic and the way it's treated its citizens, who are now, threatened to be 10% of our population is at risk of being homeless at this moment because of what is happening with rent. And you're taking away the very little money that you are giving people who cannot go to work. And our essential workers are dying and becoming sick because of this pandemic and the way that it's been handled, and how he's politicized every issue that has to do with our humanity that specifically affects marginalized communities more than anybody else. He's handled every single issue with a lack of responsibility or remorse or regard for people who are beneath him. And when you don't know, if you don't know who those people are that are beneath him, that is all of us who are not in the top 1% of the population, no matter how they decide to spin it. So no, I'm not surprised about how this is happening. And be very careful, you constitutional, patriot people who are always talking about how you want to uphold this government and its laws, that he is attacking your laws while insulting your intelligence by emotionally motivating you to hate other people and distract you while he takes your laws away from you too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we hear a lot about free speech and the importance of free speech when these violations negatively impact the right wing. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're going to claim you care about First Amendment rights, then you need to fight for all fellow Americans to maintain their First Amendment rights. The First Amendment doesn't start and stop with conservatives who want to speak on college campuses. They absolutely should be allowed to speak on public college campuses, and protesters have the right to assemble. And what we're seeing right now is federal judges essentially telling protesters who have been detained for nonsense by federal agents that they will not be released unless they agree that they will no longer assemble, that they will no longer be part of these protests. That was a story that we reported on yesterday. That is a constitutional violation. Our civil liberties are being dismantled, and no one took any of this seriously before. They thought that Trump was all talk. But he's actually implementing a lot of what he threatened to do. And we're seeing this right now when it comes to this upcoming election. Now, I do want to go to, honestly, disturbing video featuring Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was asked about Donald Trump's statements by Tim Kaine. Let's take a quick look.
Can a president delay a presidential election?
Senator, in the end, the Department of Justice, others will make that legal determination. We all should want, I know you do too, Senator Kaine, want to make sure we have an election that everyone is confident in. It's not only
are you indifferent to the date of the election?
It should happen lawfully.
Right.
Yeah.
It should happen lawfully.
Yeah.
So for the record, because you may not want to comment on it, but I do think it's important. A president cannot delay an election. The date of the election is established by Congress. It was established in 1845. There is no ability for a president to delay an election. And I don't think it's that hard a question, or one that should lead to any equivocation by somebody who's fourth in line of succession to be president of the United States.
Honestly, I can't stand, first of all, the answer from Mike Pompeo is concerning because, again, for everyone who's like, oh no, don't worry, Trump can't do that unilaterally. He's done all sorts of things unilaterally. He's broken all sorts of laws. And in this case, you have Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, who alongside Attorney General William Barr, who totally lied about Mueller's investigation and what it said about Trump obstructing justice. Those two together are gonna do what it takes to carry out what Trump wishes, because that means they get to maintain their position of power. And Aida, I want to also just quickly mention that all these conservatives who downplayed some of the worries that liberals had about Trump trying to delay the election are now changing their tune. Now all of a sudden they're like, yeah, voter fraud. That's a serious problem. There's no evidence of it, but we're going to pretend like there is because we want to maintain our positions of power as well. And just to give you guys all a quick reminder, here are some of the conservatives and the commentary that they gave in April of this year when it came to the worries that people have about Trump trying to delay this election. Take a look.
Someone might want to check up on Joe Biden during this nationwide lockdown. He's saying some very strange things. Biden pushed a bizarre conspiracy theory. It was that President Trump may try and delay the 2020 election.
Joe Biden says he thinks President Trump will try to delay the November election. Biden did not provide any evidence for this charge.
Trump is somehow going to move the election. It's just so dumb. I mean, I can't believe, we have to cover this, but we do because it was brought up by a major party candidate.
This is an attempt to frighten people. This is all the Democrats have, is an effort to frighten their own people into thinking that this is going to be some kind of a coup. Whereas in fact, the president, I think, is looking forward to this, clearly wants to have an election, and this is all the Democrats have, into looking suspiciously at the president. I think they'll fail here.
Aida, I'm exhausted, and your fire really reinvigorates me. So I'm just gonna let you go off. Do your thing, because I want to hear what you have to say here.
It's so funny to me that there is this movement of people in this country that are this very anti-intellectual movement, right? But then you see these people who are in positions of power that have gone to colleges, and these things come out of their mouths. I'm not just worried, I'm angry, right? Because it's a bunch of white men who are fighting their last stand to maintain white power in white people in power. And I said white power because that's exactly what they've been saying. Barr went on national television and spoke on behalf of Roger, what's his name? I can't even think of all these fools
Roger
right
Stone.
now. Roger Stone. Do you think it's just for a 67-year-old man to be in prison, is what he said, while Bill Cosby is going to be rot in jail, but he's a black man, right? And not to excuse what Bill Cosby did, but just to say that you find humanity in a criminal because he looks like you. So when we see these people talking, it is white supremacy at work. And you can say whatever you want to say, that we're trying to use the race card, but it is people trying to hold on to the privilege that they think that they have, and they want to maintain the status quo. So whatever Trump can do to prolong that for them is what they're fighting for. They're not fighting for rights. They're not fighting for the Constitution. They're not fighting for better wages for the people in this country. They're not fighting for health care. They're fighting to keep their foot on the necks of the people that they perceive to be beneath them. And so while many people don't take this stuff seriously, we didn't take Donald Trump seriously, and now he's the president. We have to stay diligent. We have to vote, and we have to use our voices to speak out of this ridiculousness, because whether their base believes it or not, All they do every day is insult the intelligence of their base by stoking them with fear. They're stoking their fears and emotionally driving them by making them feel that people that look like me and darker are going to take something away from them. And just out of that fear, they will uphold whatever this president throws at them, because all they want to do is hold on to power. And they won't have it. It's really what they're fighting for.
You know, and Trump was really planning to rely on the economy in order to get reelected. Now, let me just be clear that the economic numbers prior to the pandemic did not benefit the majority of Americans. It certainly did benefit those at the top who have the means to invest in the stock market. But if you look at the economic numbers that came out just today, you can understand why Donald Trump has already begun to plant this seed of delaying the election. So I'm going to fast forward to what the Associated Press reported this morning about the economic numbers. The government reported Thursday that the US economy shrank by a dizzying 39.9% annual rate in the April to June quarter, by far the worst quarterly plunge ever, threw tens of millions out of work and sent unemployment surging to 14.7%. I mention that because he's killing two birds with one stone in his mind by tweeting something like this. You plant the seed and test the waters, see if you could possibly delay the election, and you also distract from having a conversation about where we really are with the economy, which, by the way, we will not do on this show. We absolutely will cover the economy in great detail later on, so definitely stick around for that. And just to give you some poll numbers, presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden leads President Trump, by 4 points in Florida. The results come as Real Clear Politics average of Florida polls shows Biden with a nearly 7-point advantage over Trump, although that figure is boosted by two surveys this month showing Biden with a double-digit advantage. A Quinnipiac University survey released 2 weeks ago found Biden ahead by an astonishing 13 points in Florida. So Trump is in trouble, he knows it, and we should take these warnings seriously. Democrats in Congress should not approach this the way they've approached every other issue, including how Trump has handled civil unrest in this country. And you can't just rely on bad faith actors, dishonest individuals within the Trump administration and within Congress, to be honest with you, Republicans in Congress, to do the right thing. But when we come back from the break, we are going to talk about some Republicans who have begun to speak out against what Trump tweeted this morning. We'll give you the details on that and more when we return.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to TYT. Anna Kasparian and Aida Rodriguez with you. One more announcement, and it's about our partner, Aspiration. Aspiration is our wonderful partner, and we are working with them to do a sweepstakes on an e-scooter. And in order to enter to win an e-scooter, all you have to do is open up a save and spend account with Aspiration. And if you already have one of those accounts, don't you worry. You also have an opportunity to enter to win, and you do so by referring friends. You can learn more about this by going to tyt.com/greensummer, tyt.com/greensummer, and you can look cool just like JR by riding in an e-scooter. I love it. By the way, estimated value, nearly $2,000. That is not a small amount of money, so pretty cool. I wanna read some member comments as well. Mickey C says, Trump has always announced his crimes in advance. Absolutely. Yep. Just as he admits them after. Talking about delaying the election is yet another crime he's working on. Wicked says, the ones that rig our elections are you and the GOP, bunker boy. I would not be surprised come November, he will claim he is sick, so he can't have the election. I mean, we're the ones voting, so he can be as sick as he wants. We get to still vote. Tina says, yay, the A-team is here, Ida and Anna. Thank you so much. All right, well, let's get to the second half of that story because there are some Republicans speaking out and it's worth discussing. Following Donald Trump's tweet arguing that maybe we should postpone the election due to what he claims would be voter fraud, something that is completely unsubstantiated, has been debunked multiple times. There have been some Republicans who have spoken out and disagreed with Trump, which shouldn't be a big deal, but in the Trump era absolutely is a big deal because so many of them have been absolutely cowardly in checking Trump, even if they're in Congress, and they should be a check and a balance to his power. Now, one of those Republican representatives is Adam Kinzinger, who said the following: reminder, election dates are set by Congress, and I will oppose any attempts to delay the 2020 election. Now, I shouldn't feel more relief when I see Republicans push back against Trump, but I do feel relief. And the reason why is because if you only rely on Democrats to prevent Trump from doing something unconstitutional, then he's gonna do something unconstitutional. There's essentially no check to his power. With Republicans speaking out, there's a glimmer of hope, but I still don't think that we should get overly confident about this. I think we should take Trump's threats seriously. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell also chimed in. According to one tweet, Mitch McConnell has told station WNKY in Kentucky, quote, never in the history of the country, through wars and depressions and the Civil War, have we ever not had a federally scheduled election on time, and we'll find a way to do that again this November 3rd. Now, Stuart Varney from Fox News is, of course, a Trump loyalist, a Trump supporter. And it is interesting to witness his evolution on this issue when you consider his commentary on postponing the election in April to what he's saying today. Let's take a quick look at that.
Joe Biden making a 2020 prediction. He thinks President Trump is going to push back the election. What's that about? Pay attention to the last sentence. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote. Come in, please, Senator John Barrasso, Republican from Wyoming. Delay the vote? What do you say, Mr. Senator? I do apologize for interrupting you, but if we have mail-in balloting the way it's scheduled now, there is absolutely no way you will get an election result on election night or even in the first few days. That means confusion and endless challenges. That is a mess. What do you think? Delay the election? You can't start counting mail-in ballots until the day of the election. And in some places, you can't start counting until you've checked every mail-in ballot for the right postmark. I mean, it's a mess, Senator.
So what? I mean, that was such a dumb argument. Oh, we won't know the final results on the night of the election. It is just going to be a mess. So maybe we should just postpone it indefinitely and do away with our democracy. What do you say, John Barrasso? So what did John Barrasso say? Let's take a look.
Delay the vote? What do you say, Mr. Senator?
Well, I think we're going to vote on Election Day, and the lead up to Election Day, it'll be a secure election, and we will, if I can have anything to do with it, we will re-elect Donald Trump president of the United States.
Mr. Senator, I do apologize for interrupting you, but if we have mail-in balloting the way it's scheduled now, there is absolutely no way you will get an election result on election night or even in the first few days. That means confusion and endless challenges. That is a mess. What do you think? Delay the election?
No, we're not going to delay the election, Stuart. We're going to have the election completed and voting completed by Election Day. It's going to take a while to get all the votes counted, I am certain. We need to, though, continue to do this as we do state by state. We may not know on election night the balance of the House of Representatives or the Senate or the presidency, but we will not delay the elections.
Good.
So Aida, John Barrasso is a Republican senator. And so, if I heard a Democrat say that to Stuart Varney, I'd be like, okay, great, what are you gonna do? But it is important to have bipartisan support to make sure that we have the election on the date that it's scheduled for. But I wanted to get your thoughts. Do you feel any sense of relief hearing Republicans say this? Or do you think that, like with other issues, they might change their tune later?
I don't feel any relief hearing anything that comes out of the mouths of practically the majority of the people in Washington. Across the aisle right now, I just think there's a lot of lip service. What I will say to you is that I think this is very interesting. The people who are super patriotic and love Donald Trump and hate communist countries and hate authoritarian governments love Donald Trump, who's Putin's boy. And so when he employs the behaviors of said dictators of other countries who he is friends with, nobody seems alarmed. What kind of patriotism is this? Like, what kind of people are you who say you are fighting for your constitution, but when the president of the country, who you continue to, run behind like little puppies, says things that do not sound familiar to our democracy, you roll with it? What is it that you think you're going to get at the end? And then when you think about these politicians, these pundits, or I don't even know if they're real journalists, who are like, always pumping the thumping, the trumping, the thumping, trumping, whatever I call it. I got a new name for it every week because I can't stand none of them. It's either, what has he promised you? Like, what are you getting paid? Or what does he have on you? Because that's the kind of business that Donald Trump has always done. I don't think it's real loyalty. I think it's either they're negotiable or they're afraid. Like, because this whole, it seems preposterous when you look about our American government and how far gone we are, how far away we are from order, decency, respect. What our government is supposed to be, what other countries have tried to model their governments after, because we're supposed to be the leaders of the free world, the countries that, that everyone envies, that people swim across waters and run across borders for. And it's just like, we are really here having this conversation right now, Anna. The president is trying to delay the election because he's not doing well, because he's an entitled, privileged, just temper tantrum driven toddler, and he has the hands to prove it. So he is a toddler that's always employing this behavior of privilege and just disgusting, he's so spoiled, man. He's like a spoiled brat. And when he doesn't get what he wants to break the rules. This is how our country is being ran, by a gigantic toddler with little hands. Gets mad when he doesn't get his way, and then he says, well, I'm gonna change the rules. I need to change the rules. And that's what you want running your country? I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are, what you subscribe to, whether you are pro-life, pro-choice, you believe in Jesus or you don't. That's what you want running your country? I am scared for the people, the children, because these are the adults that they're looking at. This is embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, look, Donald Trump has accelerated the dismantling of our civil liberties and our constitutional rights. And so, and it is incredible what we do abroad under like the false premise of protecting democracy. One of the more recent examples of that, and even though it hasn't been confirmed, I have reason to believe that the United States was behind the coup that overthrew Evo Morales in Bolivia just recently, right? And the argument was, oh, well, he wanted to serve past the term, and even people on the left were buying that ridiculous argument. And guess what happened in Bolivia? The right wing is in charge now. They are unbelievably cruel and murderous to natives in Bolivia. And it's just absolute chaos in that country. And we've done that to multiple countries around the world, right? That happened under the Trump administration. But it is important to mention that we have to hold all of our presidents, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, accountable for violating the rights of Americans and the rights of people abroad. I mean, Obama dropped a drone strike on a US citizen, Anwar al-Awlaki. And he might have been a bad guy, but he has the right to due process. And following that, we decided to murder his 16-year-old son as well. So we're not having a discussion about whether he was a bad guy, but we are having a discussion about whether or not we actually value and want to protect our constitutional rights. And so if you think that it's okay under one president because you happen to be part of that president's party, just understand that opens the door for the next president to come in. The next president can be Donald Trump or worse, and they'll go even further. And that's what we're experiencing right now in the United States. It's absolutely hideous. It's terrifying. And I think you're right in being worried and not feeling any portion of relief or any bit of relief. But at the same time, I would feel far worse if it was just Democrats speaking out, because I've lost my faith in them actually holding Trump accountable. When I see what's happening to protesters right now and how it continues to happen day in, day out in Portland, it doesn't give me a lot of faith in the Democratic Party, just keeping it real.
True. In New York, somebody got abducted. There's a video, and then the new NYPD made a statement. You said something and it just made me feel like the problem in this country is that we've become so political party driven that we've forgotten the people. We're so busy being, loyal and affiliated with political parties that we're no longer thinking about, what the policies are that affect everyday people. And that's why they are attacking our rules and our laws, because we're so focused on hating Republicans and Democrats, and you're this and you liberals this and you conservatives that. They are, while we're distracted doing that, they are attacking our freedoms.
Well, sometimes they go so far that they attack one of their own. And I think this next story is a pretty tragic example of that. So let's move on to Herman Cain. One-time Republican presidential candidate Herman Cain has died due to complications from coronavirus. He died at the age of 74. He was hospitalized earlier this month after he contracted the virus. And although it is not confirmed when or where he contracted the virus, it is worth mentioning that he did attend Donald Trump's Tulsa, Oklahoma rally, was not wearing a mask, and was surrounded by other individuals who were not wearing a mask. Now, as a co-chair of Black Voices for Trump, Cain was one of the surrogates at President Donald Trump's June 20th rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which saw at least 8 Trump advance team staffers in attendance test positive for coronavirus. Herman Cain also tweeted a photo of himself and others at the event. And he said, here's just a few of the Black Voices for Trump at tonight's rally, having a fantastic time. And none of them are wearing masks. Now, on Fox News, there was a conversation, I believe, that was trying to make it seem as though the Tulsa rally had nothing to do with Herman Cain getting sick. But let's take a look at what the argument is, and I'll fill you in on what the reality is.
John Roberts, if you could stand by at the White House for us.
Yeah, Sandra, if there's one other thing I could point out. At that Tulsa rally, everybody who was going to get close to the president, and that would have included Herman Cain, and because I went through it myself, were tested for coronavirus disease. They had a couple of tents that were set up outside of the center there in Tulsa. And he would have tested negative at that point. Otherwise, he would not have been allowed into the rally. So something happened between Tulsa and the 20th 29th, where he contracted the virus. Not to say he got it at the rally. Yeah. There were some staffers who showed positive, some Secret Service who showed positive, both prior to the rally actually beginning and in the aftermath. Not to say that happened to Herman Cain, but it's likely that he would have been negative for coronavirus on that day because he would have been tested.
Would have been tested.
I mean, how are people not insulted watching that segment? He's insulting the intelligence of every single person who's watching that segment. Oh, he was tested for coronavirus right before the event. But he's trying to make it seem like the event had not. Yeah, he could have contracted it at the event. It doesn't matter if he tested negative right before the event. He was at this event where people were not forced to socially distance. Apparently, masks were given out to individuals who wanted them, who were willing to wear them. But there were many people at that event who were not wearing masks. It was not mandatory, which is a huge problem because Donald Trump wanted the crowd to be full and he wanted to, avoid any imagery that could remind people of what a complete and utter failure he is. And he believes that people wearing masks is a poor reflection on him. It makes him look bad. He said so during an interview with the Wall Street Journal. So look, this is a tragic story. And although I disagreed with Herman Cain on pretty much every political issue imaginable, I don't wish this to happen to anyone. He had a wife, he had children, and the pain of losing someone you love is horrible, and I don't wish it upon anyone. But this should be an opportunity for people to understand that Donald Trump's administration does not value people's lives at all. And they are lying to people and misinforming people purposely. And I mean, untold numbers of people are gonna get sick. People are gonna die. We already have 152,000 people in America who have died from this virus. This is serious. Please wear a mask.
Yeah, remember when they were saying, only 3,000 people, it's like the flu. This is what I wanna say, a couple of things. What do we know about coronavirus? Everything and nothing all at the same time. The virus is always mutating. The information continues to change. The one thing that they keep telling us is to protect ourselves because they don't know all of the variables, right? And so as a result, a lot of people have died because they take for granted that they shouldn't do, that they should do these things. And here we are with another loss of life. But what I will tell you about coronavirus from my own personal experience, which I've had about 8 family members who've had it, one who was on a ventilator and almost died, is that whether they test you, you can be exposed to coronavirus and not develop symptoms from 2 to 10 days, right? So whether they tested him at that day and he didn't have it, I mean, first of all, that doesn't mean he couldn't get it at the rally, which is what you said. But the other thing is that there were people there who did test positive that he was exposed to because it was national headline news that 6 staffers at that time that I read the article had tested positive for COVID. So it's not like COVID was not present at the rally because 6 people tested positive on the day of the rally who were part of the administration. So if he was exposed to those people, then he could very well contract COVID from them and not develop symptoms until later because that is what science says. I don't care about where coronavirus started. I don't care about who's politicizing it. I don't care about who stands to get money from the vaccine. If we all have a mistrust for this government and this administration, then we should be vigilant over our own lives and protect ourselves at all costs because we cannot trust these people and we don't have all of the information. So why would you risk your life because of a conspiracy theory or some foolishness that Donald Trump gets tested every day. He is not around the general public. He is not going to a hospital if he gets sick. He's going to have the best doctors. He flies in a private plane. He does not take Ubers and he doesn't order Postmates. So why are you trying to compare yourself with a person who lives the utmost privileged life? And that is why I don't understand why average people who want to identify with Donald Trump risk their lives daily and then end up in the news, a joke, dead, because they followed the instructions of somebody who is receiving the ultimate protections against the coronavirus. The last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to keep it quick, is that a dog died of coronavirus today and trended over Herman Cain. So what I wanted to say to people of color who are who are devoutly part of this freaking, we don't even know what to call them anymore, right? You are a part of this, and these people don't even value your life enough to send you the respect. Why isn't Herman Cain trending? He's a conservative. He belongs to the MAGA cult. Why is he not trending number one? Because he's a black man and they don't care about him. He is no longer of use to them. So what I want to say with respect to Herman Cain is rest in peace. I send love and light to his family. Just because some people and I don't agree, doesn't mean that their lives didn't matter. And right now, if we're going to say Black lives matter, then Herman Cain's life mattered too. Shame on the MAGA cult.
All right, that's a good place to leave it before we go to break. When we come back, yet another conservative has become a victim from coronavirus. I'll tell you who when we return.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Welcome back to TYT. Before we get to member comments, I want to check in on our fundraising effort. Let's take a look at the thermometer. Remember, we're trying to raise 200 grand each month, and our number was a little higher yesterday, so there might have been some sort of mistake. Maybe there was some sort of refund situation going on. But right now we're at $172,004, and we really need to meet that goal, guys. So just go to tyt.com/go to contribute to TYT. This is something that I got to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of asking people for money. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I would rather do that than rely on corporate sponsors to remain afloat. So thank you so much for those who have contributed. And if you could contribute, that would mean the world to us. A few member comments and then we'll move on. Rainbow Bright says, hey, Ida, I just wanted to let you know I am loving Truth Serum and all the interviews. Orlando Jones was deep and educational. Keep it up. And yeah, everyone should check out Ida's podcast, Truth Serum. I think it's so good and so important. And you seem to really enjoy doing it.
No, I want you to do it. You've done Truth Serum before. You were on the first, but I need people to see you on this one because we have fun.
Yeah, I love the fire, because all the time you watch media and everyone is robotic and it seems like they are speaking the words, but there's no passion behind it. It's almost as if they're indifferent to everything that's going on. And I'm not in any way inspired by that. So I think it's so important to hear voices like yours, Ida, especially with the way you deliver the truth. We want to get that true truth serum. So it's awesome. And then one more comment. I bathe in a very stable genius's tears says Trump won't delay the election. He'll wait to see if he won. If he doesn't, then he'll take it to the courts, banking the Supreme Court, keeping him in office. Meanwhile, he'll stay in office. The Supreme Court will also delay any vote until at least the middle of next year. So that's what you believe. I'm honestly worried that that's also a possibility. And brace for impact. I feel like we're constantly bracing for impact. Well, let's do one more story before we end this hour and go to our post game. So Bill Montgomery, who's a co-founder of the pro-Trump right-wing conspiracy theory group known as Turning Point USA, has died of coronavirus. Montgomery, who started Turning Point USA in 2012 with young conservative Charlie Kirk, died at the age of 80 on Tuesday. Now, conservative strategist Caleb Hall argued that the pandemic has been politicized and there are unnecessary deaths as a result. Again, this is a conservative strategist, and here's a direct quote posted on Facebook. I really wish people would just stop politicizing this pandemic and grow up while innocent people around us are dying. You have no idea how painful it is to be forced to sit at home while your loved one dies alone in a hospital. Well, speaking of people who have politicized this and spread all sorts of misinformation, the co-founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, has downplayed the pandemic over and over again, downplayed the importance of wearing a mask. And he shared his own thoughts on the passing of Bill Montgomery, saying, quote, I can't put into words how saddened I am by the death of my dear friend, Bill Montgomery. Well, if you were genuinely worried about, or if you genuinely value, if you genuinely value people around you, then don't spread misinformation about this virus. And that's exactly what Charlie Kirk has done. I'll give you a few examples. There are many more, but I'll give you a few. Kirk stated that he believed that the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions should self-quarantine. Outside of that, however, he has questioned the vast majority of public health proposals to limit community spread. On the Sunday edition of his podcast, Kirk said, quote, do not force me to wear a mask. It's that simple. I'm not gonna do it, I'm not. Now remember, a lot of young people will contract coronavirus, have absolutely no symptoms, but they can spread coronavirus. That's why it's important for everyone to wear a mask, including young people like Charlie Kirk. He also said, every single time I go into one of these grocery stores, where's the mask? I say, well, first of all, the science around masks is very questionable, very questionable. In fact, some doctors think that masks actually make you sicker and have you less likely to be able to get oxygen and more likely to infect yourself and less likely to be able to fight the virus and actually more likely to be able to die sooner. So those are the kinds of statements that Charlie Kirk has made, Aida, in the past in regard to wearing masks. As we know, multiple studies have shown that masks do stop or slow the community spread of the virus, which is incredibly important. And elderly people don't live in a vacuum. So to say that elderly people should just self-quarantine and everyone else should just go about their day as if nothing's going on is ridiculous. And we are seeing some instances of young people dying from the virus as well. So, this type of misinformation has been so destructive to the country overall. We have more than 152,000, or nearly 152,000 Americans dead as a result of the virus at this point, and the numbers keep jumping up. There are real victims to this misinformation, and it's also hitting conservatives who they work with, colleagues who they claim they love, but they don't change their messaging at all.
The children that are dying, a dog died today. What's interesting is you don't have to listen to Republicans and Democrats. I was in the hospital a couple of weeks ago for a kidney infection, and when I got to that hospital, they took my temperature. There was a certain level of screening. The doctors and the nurses took care of themselves in a way that that coronavirus is real. You don't have to listen to politicians, just listen to health experts. You listen to the practitioners, listen to the doctors, listen to the nurses. You don't have to listen to anybody. What I will say about Charlie Kirk, if you told me tomorrow, I do a lot of stuff that I go out and I speak and I advocate and I do it for free. The only people that I will listen to are the people who are willing to put down the bag and speak their gospel for free if they are truly about the people. So when it comes to Tomi Lahren and Charlie Kirk, they can miss me with whatever they have to say, because unless they're willing to put down their pot of gold and stand on what they believe in allegedly and what they stand for without exploiting the American people and taking the American people's money, I don't care anything that they have to say. Americans are selfish, they're self-centered, they're privileged, and they are downright wrong when it comes to this pandemic. And it shouldn't take you to get sick or someone for you know to get someone you know to get sick for you to employ some empathy. And furthermore, I would love to hear what he has to say now that he's lost a partner.
Mm-hmm. Well, he says he's devastated by it, but the real question is, will he admit that the misinformation he's been spreading puts people's lives at risk? For instance, Kirk was banned for a brief time from Twitter in late March for falsely claiming that the anti-malaria drug hydroxychloroquine was 100% effective in treating the coronavirus. People like Charlie Kirk are part of the problem. And you're absolutely right. There are financial incentives to toe the line, to be loyal to Trump, to spread the messaging coming from the Trump administration. And it's shameful. And Turning Point USA is still hosting events where people are not social distancing, are not wearing masks, are not basically told like you absolutely have to wear a mask, it's mandatory. And they're putting people's lives at risk. And it's just so incredibly unnecessary. And I've just gotten to a point where I'm just so stressed out with trying to persuade everyone else to do the right thing that just to like maintain my own sanity, I try to give the right information on this show and just think about this individualistically, because you have no choice. I'm either gonna die from the stress of trying to convince people and debunk all these conservatives, or I can't stand it. Anyway, we gotta go. Post game is next, tyt.com/join to become a member. Don't miss it, we'll see you soon.
Great thoughts.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.